Well, it looks like you're ready for another New Testament keyword Bible study. This is video number 13, and the word for this study is sanctification, hagiosmos, or hagiosmos, depending on how you prefer to pronounce it. Also included in this is a connection with the word saint, or hagios, holy ones. St. Paul would refer to members of churches as the saints. The key passages for today's word study will be found in Luke chapter 1, the whole chapter pretty much, but in particular verses 46 to 55, and backing up to verses 26 to 38. It's the story of Mary being called by God to be the mother of Jesus. Hagiosmos is often translated to indicate sanctification. Now, when you read that word, depending on the context and where you are reading in the Bible, you will certainly have your own images of what that means. In the key passage for today's study, the picture we first meet is that of Mary, set aside, chosen. And in that being set aside and chosen, she exalts God and she calls him the Holy One. And then she submits herself to what God is asking of her. She was chosen. In the language of the early church, she would become Theotokos, the God-bearer. Now, we biblical students look at the history of Israel as a nation that was chosen. And the nation, through time, flows through forming an ancient identity, engaging in conquest, taking over the promised land, internal strife amongst the tribes, victory and defeat in conquest, blessings and consequences, being held captive by alien countries, being set free. And looking back, they see the hand of God working with them, forming them, challenging them, leading them, providing for them. In other words, God's hand working in and through history to accomplish his purpose. Throughout the journey, Israel is consecrated and receives sanctification. And St. Paul makes it perfectly clear in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 30, that Jesus himself is our sanctification. And what he means is, from this time forward, it is through Jesus that people receive an ability, the ability to draw near to God, and as a result of being drawn near to God, you can become holy. Faith in Jesus is what makes people holy. Now you can see the New Testament focus, I hope. Of course, the other thing about it is that people had to get involved. You had to choose to follow Jesus. I'll get back to that. Paul continues to teach that in the life of the church, it's the Holy Spirit who brings about the state of sanctification. And through the Holy Spirit, even the Gentiles have now become acceptable to God. And those of you who have done Bible 101 courses with me will remember how we discussed the process whereby this original Jewish sect who were following Jesus became open to the whole world. And of course, eventually, as you know, Christianity took over the Roman Empire. So Paul then establishes this idea that those who have been sanctified by their relationship with Jesus and who are members of the church are now the hagios, the saints. So let's connect the dots and create a roadmap as we look at what was happening throughout the New Testament. You would remember that the idea of the Holy One in Jewish teaching and Jewish thinking applied mainly to God. There is one God, the Lord of all. God himself was the only Holy One, the God above all gods. And as I've mentioned when we began this little study, Luke reminds us of that in the Magnificat through Mary's words, and holy is his name. So we learn that throughout past, present, and future, the act of sanctification is the work of God through the Holy Spirit. And obviously in the New Testament, Jesus brings this into a perfect focus. But remember, whatever God does, whatever Jesus has done, human beings must participate themselves in the act of being holy and in the act of being made holy. This is about the surrender of your heart, your mind, and your will. A good lesson for the church today, isn't it? To be humble before God and before one another. 1 Peter exhorts the community to be holy in all conduct by cooperating with the Spirit of God. Like Israel's ideal, cooperating with the Spirit of God, Christians will become Hierotumahagion, Hieros meaning priest, a royal priesthood, and a royal nation. You can read about that in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 50, and the second chapter, verse 9. A powerful, beautiful word, isn't it? One that brings many images together, and when you read the Bible in different places, now you have a background understanding of what the word sanctification means. Here's a closing summary. Hagiosmos is making or becoming holy, a partnership with God through which a person or a community is set apart. Sanctification, holiness, and consecration. God bless you. See you soon.